All right, before we go anywhere today, I'm really proud of this show. I'm proud of the clarity that we've created, that I've created as the host. I'm proud of the structure. I'm proud of how intentional these episodes have been. And I'm also noticing something about myself as the host as I go through this whole process. And that's this. I've gotten tighter. What I mean by that is that I've gotten more scripted, more careful. I've been more concerned about being palatable than I have been about being fully exposed and authentic and expressive. And it's not that there's anything right or wrong with that. It's just that I don't want to be that as much. And it's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, this is coming from a place of attention and care that I have for you as my listener. And so today I wanted it to be a little different. I wanted it to feel like we're actually talking to each other. You know, part of the process of doing these episodes and the preparation for it is that I get to, have ideas and flesh them out, and I'll use ChatGPT to help me to kind of see different angles. And it's a pretty simple and easy thing to step into this place where I'm acting like I have all this wisdom associated with what I'm saying. And it's not that at all. It's that I just, stumbled across a good idea and I figured out how to make it sound better. And obviously that doesn't help anybody. Energetically speaking, authenticity and expression has a frequency. It has a vibration. And so if I'm in this place of performative wisdom, you should listen to what I have to say, then it won't be helpful. You could get the same stuff by just Googling the type of subject matters that we're talking about. So having said that, all of this is coming because the idea that I want to talk about today, it doesn't come from a perfectly written script. It's something that it has to be felt. And that idea, it's this. It's that right now, whether or not you realize it or not, you are in a trance. I want you to let that land for a second. You are under a spell. You are in a trance. And what I mean by trance, and of course, before your brain jumps to somewhere weird, let me be clear. I'm not saying that in some sort of mystical or dramatic way. There's no judgment here, obviously. I'm saying that you are in a trance in the most practical way possible. Now, a trance is simply a set of beliefs that you stopped questioning. It's the meaning that you assigned to your lived experience, your reality. Everything about what you see when you open your eyes, the way you experience your life, the people that you interact with, your relationship with things like money, your ideas about success, these are all come from a place where inside you've decided certain quote unquote facts about that thing, that person, that experience. And so you being in a trance is quite literally a story that you're telling yourself about your life. And that story makes your life, even if you don't like it, it makes it at least feel normal and familiar. And so you don't even recognize it as a story that you're the teller of. It's just your lived experience now. And I want you to consider that is a dangerous place to be in a state of normal. Normal is dangerous, especially when you have a desire for more in your life, when you are actively involved in your own personal growth and development. To be where things are normal, that is sign number one that you are full on in a state of trance. There's no other way to say it. Things are normal. You're not questioning anything. Again, that's the definition. A trance is simply a set of beliefs that you stopped questioning, a set of experiences you stopped questioning. So how you develop these moments of hypnosis, these trance moments, it's pretty simple, actually. One of the things that happens is you let external evidence come in and then you interpret it. And then you repeat the interpretation over and over and over again so that it becomes both a part of your identity and it becomes your actual lived experience. And in that moment, you don't challenge it, you don't defend it, you do defend it, and you organize your behavior around it. Now, let me be clear. That's not strength. That's not weakness. That's just what it is. And that is hypnosis. You're in a trance. Now, I want to make this, I know I just used this word in a different way, but I want to make it seem like a normal thing to be in a trance, or at least a thing that is a regular occurrence. Because I'm not being dramatic when I say this like you're under some puppet master's spell. But I want you to consider, for example, the idea of a trance. I want you to consider the last time you were deeply doom scrolling on your phone, where you just were in it. You weren't paying attention. You just were scrolling and liking and sharing, and you're just in that experience with you and your phone, and you're just there. I want you to consider how legitimately addictive that moment is, how you're in it and you're not questioning it. But then there comes a moment where you do question it, but then you get back to the scrolling. See, that right there is the type of thing I'm talking about when it comes to our hypnosis, our trance that we're in about our lives. Just certain things are automatic. Think about the last time you pulled up to your local grocery store. Where did you park? You parked in a familiar place. Did you have to think about it? No. It's because your subconscious mind has paid attention to those external things over time, and it just serves up to you in a hypnotic, trance-like way, something you didn't even have to think about. You just parked. Okay? So our routines are the same way. Why do you think you sleep on the specific side of the bed that you do? Whether you're single or with a partner, it doesn't matter. You have a routine. This routine is a trance moment. It is a hypnotic moment. It's just there. You've automated it. Okay? So I want to make sure that, this isn't me swinging a pocket watch in front of you and saying, pay attention, now breathe. It's none of that. This sort of hypnosis moment, I guess the best way to know the reality of this is if you've ever said to yourself, even today, it's just what it is. This is what my life is like now. You have succumbed and stopped questioning what your experience is. Now, here's where most people get trapped in this whole thing. So we're diagnosing this right now. Like we're saying, look, this is what it is. This is what your moment of hypnosis is. It's a kind of like I said, we're diagnosing it. We're saying, oh, these are the symptoms. This is what you're dealing with. This is the disease. And here's where most people get trapped, is that they moralize this. They moralize their reality. They ask questions like, well, is this good or bad? Is this right? Am I doing the right thing? Is this wrong? And then they get into the shoulds. Should I want differently? Is it okay for me to want? How should I be feeling? Am I ungrateful for even thinking that I want something different? Now, in your mind, these questions, they kind of sound like you're evolving, like you're asking better questions. You're allowing things to perk up and to be curious. But I'm going to tell you, they're not. There's no curiosity associated with this because they're a freezing moment. In those moments, it's not as if you actually really answer the question. You freeze. These moments freeze people when you ask these questions, when you moralize your experience. And so what I want to offer to you is a simpler question. When you're in these moments where you're feeling the trance, right? Because that's basically what happens. When you moralize your reality and try to make it about a right or wrong thing, what you're doing is you're wanting out, but you're looking through a doorway that doesn't help you to actually move through the doorway when you moralize it. You're trying to make it a right or wrong thing. So let's make it simpler. How about you ask this question? When you're looking at your experiences, and you're looking at the way that your life is, and you're looking at how your routines are giving you a certain result and the way that you think and how you interact with other people, I want you to ask this question. Does this work for me? That's the question. Does this work for me? That's it. Not forever and not for everyone and not philosophically, but does this work for me right now? I want you to consider what that question does, okay? Because this is one of the most beautiful shifts. If you do this, if you take what I'm sharing with you and you apply it and you ask a different question, instead of making about morality and right and wrong, and you ask yourself, does this work for me? I want you to consider what you're avoiding in a good way by doing that. You're bypassing the whole road of shame, of guilt, of overthinking. You are not having to intellectualize any morality about your current lived experiences. You just have to answer that simple question. Does it work for me? It's a workaround. Now you're not having to go through this toll road of all this emotionally dramatic toil and right, wrong, and shoulds and coulds and woulds. It's just a yes or no question. Does this work for me? Does my current experience work for me? And I would even ask you, does this current trance that I'm in work for me? Are the things I'm not questioning work for me? Are my routines that are giving me the life that I have working for me? Is my current identity and the way that I see myself working for me? See, there are parts of your life that do work for you, and they're working beautifully. It's an incredible thing. But you have to be honest and acknowledge there's parts of your life that don't work for you. And when you remove that morality piece out of it, it just makes you honest. That's it. And that's what we need more of. We need more people in this world that are willing to be honest with themselves, about their current experiences, their current results, their current identity, their current life. We need people to be willing to say those things regarding their own spirituality, if they're doing things with discipline or not. Even how you see yourself as a good person or not. We need to ask that question differently because it makes you honest. Look around. Our entire world is so messed up because nobody is willing to be honest. They're unwilling to acknowledge the things that don't work for them, and they're unwilling to acknowledge the things that are. They're unwilling to acknowledge their own greatness, and they are unwilling to acknowledge the places where they need help growing. I've dealt with this a lot in my life. I've had beliefs in my life that I kept far longer than I needed to. And it's not because those beliefs, some of them were true, some of them weren't, but they gave me an experience and they gave me an identity that I had to come to terms with and be like, this doesn't work for me anymore. I don't like this. And part of the reason why it took me so long to let them go is because letting them go became moral. I moralized it as it meant something about me. As if I'm supposed to be in this place, this world, this life experience where I don't get what I want. What I'm experiencing doesn't work for me. And it's the best choice to keep doing that. That's how sneaky this trance that you're under can be. Is that it convinces you that things that have zero value and should have zero weight in your decisions carry all of them. I'll share this experience. This is many years ago when I got divorced from my first wife. I was a very active member of the Mormon Church. Talked a little bit about that in other episodes. But as a part of everything that went down with our divorce, I was excommunicated from the church. And for those of you that aren't aware of what that means, I had my membership in the church revoked. I was no longer considered by the church to be a member of the church. And it affected the way that I could participate in the Sunday meetings. I wasn't able to publicly pray. I wasn't able to be a teacher or to hold any sort of responsibilities within the local jurisdiction. If I went to church, I went 100% as an invisible visitor. And as an excommunicated person, that was my lot for having broken specific rules that made it so that I was no longer a member of that church. Now, at that time in my life, the church still held an incredible importance to my identity. It was associated with the way I saw family, with my spiritual understanding, the way that I looked at just this whole journey of life, the purpose, everything was tied into doctrine and things that had been a part of my life from an early child. And so being excommunicated was a very difficult thing for me to deal with. So I went through the process. It took several years, but I went through the process to be what the church calls rebaptized, which quite means that you are re-entered into membership of the church through the ordinance of baptism. So it was a whole thing. We had a baptismal meeting and I went under the water and the whole thing. And so that was the first step to my readmittance into the church as a full-fledged member. Well, in the Mormon church, there's other levels. And so in order to receive back or be re-entered into the level next, which was where I was able to then wear the temple garment, which is a Mormon thing, and attend the temple and other privileges, quote unquote, associated with membership that I had received before, there was an additional layer of what I had to do that. And so I did that. It was important to me. And there was a whole big mess surrounding all of this because in a very real way, my ex-wife had to be a part of the whole process of my rebaptism and, as they call it, the restoring of blessings in the Mormon church. And this really soured me because my entire life I had been told that Jesus Christ was my Savior and that if I'm going to utilize the atonement of Jesus Christ for forgiveness of my own weaknesses and sins, that I had the opportunity to go straight to Him to do it. Now, all of a sudden, this woman to which I was estranged from and not in a good capacity with, not in a good, friendly way, now had a say. That didn't work for me. And so what happened is I started noticing a bunch of critical things as I was in this process of getting my blessings restored. And the day that I went to the General Authority's office in downtown Salt Lake to have this moment happen, where they do this process where there's a blessing and I get everything returned back to me. That day was supposed to have been a incredible experience, the shining of God's light back in my life. I now have full access to all the blessings to which I had lost through my excommunication. But for me, that day was different. For me, that day was an eye-opening day where because of my experiences and the shift in my identity and the processes and the things that I had lived through, and the questions I started asking, which were around that simple phrase, does this work for me? That day was not nearly as special as I had held it up to be in my mind. I walked out of that office looking entirely differently at spirituality, my relationship to Jesus Christ, and this church to whom I had devoted so much time and effort to for my entire life. And what it took me, it was my trance was ending about this church. And it wasn't an instantaneous thing. Like I still went to church. I still involved myself locally, but I did it with a different perspective and a different commitment. Instead of being fully bought in and saying, this thing has no flaws, this is exactly what I need to be doing, I need to believe everything that comes out of the mouth of these leaders, I came in with that sort of qualifying question. Does this work? Does it not work? And it led me to a concept that's called a sponsoring thought, which I used as a governing principle in my relationship with the church. When you drill all the way down to the bottom of any decision to which you are making, there is a sponsoring thought associated with your choice. Your choice or your sponsoring thought is either one of two things. It's either based out of fear or it's based out of love. Every single decision that you make is either based out of the sponsoring thought of fear, what do I have to lose, or love, how does this expression allow me to show forth my love? It's a very real thing. Every single decision that you make has one of those two options. And so when I went back to church, I wanted to make sure that the feelings that I was feeling relative to my relationship with Jesus Christ and the church was based in the sponsoring thought of love. If I felt that fear was being used to coerce me or to teach me or to warn me of anything, I was gone. I went to church meetings with that commitment. I'm staying until they start using fear as a way to bring me closer to God. because there's no way to use fear to bring you closer to God. Sometimes I made it the whole time. Sometimes I was out by the beginning song. But the truth of it is that whole shift for me came because I was willing to no longer take somebody else's truth upon me. I was willing to ask myself, does this work for me? And I bypassed the shame and guilt that had been there before that made me think I needed to choose for somebody else as opposed to choosing what was best for me. It was a big deal for me. So for you, I'm sure you have your own moments of this, but I want to talk about what happens when you don't let your trance end. If your trance that you're in right now, the hypnosis of your day-to-day life, if it never ends, when you will stop being able to optimize your environment. You will stop being able to see yourself as somebody that has an identity that can grow. It doesn't matter. You can change cities, you can change routines, you can change your look and feel in your social circles, but the same patterns will keep showing up. I've shared with you in previous episodes how I had moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, thinking that this as a new environment was going to solve all my problems. It didn't, because I carried with me the same operating system. My trance hadn't shifted internally. I was looking for external shifts as opposed to internal shifts to make the adjustment. And I know that the same thing happens to you. You can collect insights, but then never integrate them. You confuse awareness with change. You will mistake understanding for living it. Life becomes performative when the trance keeps going. You will look like you're growing, but you know as well as I know, you're stuck internally when you are performing in that way. And it's not because you're incapable, but it's because subconsciously you are being loyal to yesterday, to your old identity, to your old set of beliefs. You know, there's this thing that I've noticed that happens with high-performing people. Every single one of them that I've met have had a version of this in their origin story, where they over-intellectualize. They're smart, capable people. They have the ability to analyze and process. And they overthink their own process of letting the trance go. They think about all of the different areas. They're super analytical and trying to see it from all the different angles. And it just slows them down instead of allows them to realize, I can bypass all of this by just choosing a different identity that works for me. I can choose a different character of life to step into with all of their specific traits and strengths, and that can be my new hypnosis. That can be my new identity. We overthink it. And high performers, entrepreneurs, you guys do this better than anybody. And you get so good at doing it that you start to think that this is the way, when all it's doing is elongating the time necessary between where you're at that doesn't work and where you want to be, which does. Now, I want to break something down that this perspective unlocked something for me, and I think it could do the same for you. I want you to consider the word transcend. When we hear this word before, we think about it as like uplifting us out of something. We are transcending the moment. We are being above it. It's a movement. It's a word that's associated with movement. When you break it down, the trans part of it means across. The word end means to finish. And so what that means is that transcend literally means, by definition, the trance is ending. When you transcend into the new part of your life, your trance is ending. And it's not for you to become someone else. It's for you to now see clearly what was always there. And that moment, when that moment of awareness comes in, your choices change and more becomes available. And that's the pivot. When now you have options to choose because you've allowed the trance to end. And you can see things clearly. The world opens up to you. Again, like I said, that's the moment of your pivot. It's not easy, but it's very, very simple. And I want to make sure we understand the difference in those two things. Most people confuse and make it as if the word simple and the word easy are the same. They are not. Simple just means very, very direct. Something could take 2 steps, very, very simple, and each one of those steps could be extremely difficult, but it still is uncomplicated. I want you to consider the way that you use those words in your life right now. You will find power as you discern and use those words properly. The same thing goes with the word difficult and complex. Those are sisters compared to easy and simple, difficult and complex. Something might not be difficult, but it could seem complex because it has many stages. And something complex we might think is difficult, but it's very, very easy. And so I bring these up again because there's power in the way that we look at these words, just like you looking at the word transcend, just like you understanding the hypnosis that you're under. When you get clear of these things, it starts to show us a break in the clouds. And so you can see things better and more powerfully. Your identity in all this might ruffle some feathers, but I'm okay with it. Your identity is not who you are. It's who you've been practicing to be. Your identity is underneath it all, the foundation of everything associated with your life, your results, and your experiences. Your identity, who you are, how you choose to see yourself, the way that you exercise and use I am statements, those are attached to your identity. Your identity governs everything above it. Your identity governs your values. Your values are the things to which you give value to. Honesty, integrity, those are considered values. There's also other things that aren't nearly as consequential, but yet still are very consequential that you have as values. And your values then govern your beliefs, the things that you believe. And your beliefs then govern your behaviors. So when somebody says to you, man, I got to stop doing this, they're talking about changing a behavior. And what they're doing is they're going the long way. That's why 30-day challenges rarely work, is because you're just addressing the behavior. You're not addressing the thing underneath it all that's governing why you're behaving in that way in the first place. Because your behavior directly drills straight down into how you see yourself and your identity. You can't outwork your identity. If you think at a core level that your identity is somebody that struggles and somebody that doesn't succeed and that things don't work out for them, no amount of environment shift, no amount of coaching, there's nothing that will have you outrunning that level of identity. You could get up every morning, meditate regularly, treat everything right with your money, and you still would sabotage it because at a core level, you are not successful as far as how you see your identity. And that's a part of the trance. And that's what most people miss. Again, your identity is another version of this trance that you can transcend. We are always writing a new trance. We're magicians of sorts in this. It's not you. It's just your past. The pieces come from your family, from your culture, from things you've allowed to grow and fear, the way you've looked at life, your environment. But yet you are the magician in all these, and you can cast the spell as the magician to change your identity. You can cast the spell as the magician to have a new trance upon you with how you interact with the world in a successful way. You can change the spell about how money interacts with you and your attractiveness to money by money. Same with great relationships, same with physical health. You are the magician, and you are the one who gets to decide what spell you are casting. Now I want you to consider how much responsibility that means you have. That your life is yours. Everything about it is yours. If you are the magician that casts the spell and you don't like the life that you have, it means you've cast a spell that you don't enjoy. And the way that you know that you don't enjoy it is you ask yourself the question, is this working for me? And then you get to go back to the book and write a new spell that does work for you. Now, I know I'm using a lot of like Harry Potter type language here, and I hope that it's resonating. I trust you that it is. I trust that when you listen to this, you're going to go, yeah, this works for me. Because I'm not looking to fix you. There's nothing broken. I'm looking to help you see a recalibration of the way that you look at your life and yourself and your results, and how it's both. You can't just diagnose an issue and have that fix the issue. There has to be the treatment. And so when you've asked yourself, does this work for me, about your life, your identity, the way that you see things, and you know it's not work for you, that's the diagnosis. Like, okay, this doesn't work. Now what's the treatment? The treatment is a new medicine. It's a new trance. Because again, these moments of personal hypnosis and trance and the way we see it, they're not moral. They just work or don't work. And you get to be the arbiter of whether you're deciding it works or not. So as we wrap this up, this podcast exists for one main reason. And it's that identity shifts really don't happen when you're isolated. They happen in identity shifts really don't happen in isolation. They happen when you're in proximity. And you don't have to do the internal work with an audience. But you don't have to do it alone either. It's like there's that phrase that says, no one's coming to save you, which is true. Nobody can do the internal work required for you to have an adjustment to your life. But also, you don't have to be alone when you do it. So if this episode has helped you to see something differently, helped you to end your own version of the trance, what you do next will determine the new version of your life you're going to step into. And so what I want you to do, and what I'm encouraging you to do, is I would like you to take the next 24 hours and pay attention to every aspect of your life and ask yourself multiple times surrounding multiple practices, does this work for me? And when you get the answer to it then, if it doesn't, I want you to consider how you would want it to look and just internally start that process of a new trance for yourself, a new choice and a new reality. That's all I got for you today, my friends. This has been The Lab. If you're willing, please share this podcast and these episodes with your friends. If you've had a thought come to you as a result of listening to this, please continue that conversation with others. Please tell them about this podcast as a place that inspired your idea and have it be a conversation that you further. Keep this conversation going even outside of the podcast. That would allow us all to get to that place where we're not having to question so deeply, does this work for me? Just because everything will be. My friends, this is Bryce Prescott, host of The Lab. And like I always say, until next time, take it a day at a time. I'll see you.